There are a lot of videos on YouTube about Hollywood transformations and how did actors achieve a certain physical look, what was their diets, their exercise regime. But today I want to broaden the question to a slightly different direction. I want to take a high-level look at Hollywood transformations and really explore why are they a thing? Should they be a thing? And where do we go from here? To begin exploring this topic, we need to talk about method acting, or the method. The method is a number of practices that actors use or have been using in order to understand and identify with the character that they're going to play a little bit better, so that they become the character in a way in order to produce a performance that's more authentic and expressive. There are a number of actors that are known as being method actors, and some of the most extreme examples of using the method in their roles include Daniel Day-Lewis, considered the king of modern method acting. While filming Gangs of New York, he refused to upgrade his coat to a warmer one because it wouldn't have existed in the 1860s, and he caught pneumonia as a result of it. Tom Hanks gained and then lost 50 pounds for the filming of Castaway, and he also refused to cut his hair or bathe, leading to a nasty infection. Adrian Brody, for the filming of The Pianist, gave up his apartment, broke up with his girlfriend, sold his car, and disconnected his phone. For the filming of The Darkest Hour, playing Winston Churchill, Gary Oldman smoked anywhere between $20,000 to $30,000 worth of real cigars and developed stomach issues because of it. So I think there's an unlimited list of things that can be done in order to become a character as part of the practices of the method. But today we're going to be focusing on the most common ones, which generally are body transformations, whether it is gaining a substantial amount of weight, losing a substantial amount of weight, or bulking up or becoming extremely athletic. For an example of how this may look throughout the career of an actor, I'm obviously going to use the example of Christian Bale because the man's just got the whole package for us to look at. And so we begin in 2000 with American Psycho, which is what most people consider to be Christian Bale's first dip into body transformations. For the film, he basically just got really shredded and athletic. In preparation to become Patrick Bateman, he trained very intensely for 6 weeks, didn't really change his weight, but became obsessed with the gym and with a very restrictive diet. And he says that also affected how he perceived other people, that he became very judgmental of other people's looks and bodies as well. A few years go by, and then we have what I and most people consider to be his most extreme transformation of his entire career. In 2004, for The Machinist, Christian Bale dropped 63 pounds or 28.5 kilos in a time span of 5 months for this role. I watched this movie after researching for this video, and it's a shocker. It is a lot. I think we could have a whole discussion about whether his body transformation really added to the role, because when the film was and is promoted, they only mentioned that the main character is severely sleep deprived. They never mention anything about his weight or how his weight affects the story. So I don't know that doing this really dramatic change would be necessary. In my opinion, while watching the movie, I became more concerned for the real life actor than the character himself, but that is a conversation for a completely separate video, I guess. Reportedly, this body transformation came about because the writer of the script for the movie wrote his own weight, or what he would weigh being underweight, in the script, not attending to the fact that Christian Bale is 6'3". But Christian just looked at the script and he took that as a challenge. I think he consulted with a dietitian to check what would be the lowest weight that he could go down to without affecting his health. But then he took that and dropped another 20 pounds or about 9 kilos below that. Yeah, needless to say that he looks very emaciated. Most shockingly, he reports that he'd be lying asleep and he would wake up to his wife quickly withdrawing her hand from in front of his mouth to check if he was still breathing. I think a silver lining of this is that he admits that the writers and directors never asked him to do this body transformation. They planned to just get baggy clothing and just pretend that he was very skinny, but he just decided to do it anyway. Now this is where the sequence gets a bit wild, because after The Machinist filming wrapped up, Christian Bale got cast to play Batman in Batman Begins, and he had about 6 months to go from this to this. So in those 6 months, he gained about 100 pounds or 45 kilos, and it ends up that by the time he met Christopher Nolan before the filming began, he was actually too heavy to play Batman, and he ended up having to lose another 20 pounds or 9 kilos to be able to play Batman. This is a good opportunity to mention refeeding syndrome. When you spend a significant amount of time starving yourself, like he did for The Machinist, and then you reintroduce a normal way of eating, your body can react very, very badly. There are reports of other actors that have gone through this and became severely ill. However, Christian mentions that he didn't really get that bad of an effect from it. He got sick frequently from just going from one extreme to the other and eating too much, but that he was just, I guess, really glad to be able to eat again. So then the sequence continues, and from Batman Begins, we roll into Rescue Dawn, for which Christian lost about 55 pounds or 25 kilos in the time span of probably 8 months. After that, we go into The Prestige, for which he gained back 45 pounds or about 20.5 kilos in the time span of 4 months. And then we have a few years until The Fighter, for which he lost again 30 pounds or about 13.5 kilos in the time span of 5 months. A couple of years later, for American Hustle, he goes back to gaining 43 pounds or 19.5 kilos in the time span of 9 months at most. A few years go by, and for the filming of Vice in 2018, he repeats what he did for American Hustle a few years back. He gains 43 pounds or 19.5 kilos in the time span of 6 months. This is the first time that he admits to having actually consulted a professional dietitian to help him with the weight gain throughout the entire process, and that is because he wanted to make sure that he was going to gain the weight in the healthiest manner possible. That is, if we consider that gaining this amount of weight in this short amount of time is ever going to be healthy. Anyway, after Vice, we go into Ford versus Ferrari, where he then again lost a significant amount of weight, about 70 pounds or 32 kilos in the time span of 5 months. And this is where the Christian Bale timeline ends for body transformations. So I think now we can discuss, why is it that actors do this? What is their motivation? In the case of actors like Christian Bale, they claim that embodying the character is necessary for them to understand the character better, but also for them to distance themselves from the character. If the character looks enough unlike their own selves, then they are able to detach from their own identity and play the character much better. For other types of roles like Marvel superhero movies or biopics, then the actors of course have some sort of expectation to look similar to what their character looks like, or the idea that the audience has of their character in their minds. For example, playing Winston Churchill, obviously you want the actor to resemble Churchill because everyone has a picture of Churchill in their minds, whereas a Marvel superhero character is mimicking the image in the comic books, so people know what the character is supposed to look like in some way. In another example, we may have body transformations for completely different purposes. In the sitcom It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Rob McElhenney gained about 50 pounds or 22.5 kilos for season 7 of Sunny. Obviously, in a sitcom, the weight gain will not have the same purpose of achieving a more expressive or authentic performance or to resemble any sort of character that the audience has in mind, but rather for other purposes such as making some social commentary or opening the way to a different set of jokes or commentary that they could make with the series.
Getting older, we're not gonna look 20 forever. No, I am gonna look 20 forever, Mac, because the older I get, the more vigilant I become. I don't eat lunch anymore, for instance. Yeah, and on odd days, I don't eat breakfast.
That sounds miserable.
No, dude, it's not miserable. Well, yeah, it is a little bit miserable, but it has to be, man. I am also constantly in motion. Like right now, dude, I am doing leg lifts that are imperceptible to the human eye. Call them hummingbirds. And although I seem relaxed, I'm actually incredibly tense at all times.
A few seasons later, he actually went the entire opposite direction and got super jacked, and I guess the joke in that season was that he did that and no one seemed to care.
All right, what's up?
What's going on?
Oh, well, I got into really good shape. Am I hitting the light right?
What's happening?
Why did I do it? Nobody knows.
We don't know.
Anyway, I'm mentioning Sunny, but just for those of you who haven't watched the series, just, tread with caution. It's one of those series that you need to kind of ease into it, okay? But my point with this being that in Hollywood, method acting is very well regarded, and it's seen almost as a marker of dedication to the craft by the actor. If you look into it, it's no coincidence that many actors have actually gone on to receive awards or recognition for using the method or extreme practices to achieve the performances that they did. Coincidentally or not, in the case of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, the sitcom went on to earn its very first award in 2011, the same year where season 2007 aired with Fat Mac in it. So I think we can all see how there seems to be a certain implied incentive for actors to use the method or some extreme practices to perform their roles. I can't help but put a caveat in here and talk a little bit about female actors and how this is very much still a male-dominant space. When you research body transformations, most of the results will be of male actors that have applied the method. And I think there is a certain double standard when it comes to male and female actors, mainly because there seems to be far more opportunity in Hollywood for female actors that have a certain conventional look rather than those that go on to step out into method actor type of territory. I also think that women are far more scared of these extreme transformations for a fear that they won't be able to bounce back. There is a greater societal pressure for actresses to bounce back after they have an extreme body transformation than there is for men. And that is not dissimilar to the same pressure that any actress or celebrity will have after giving birth to straight after bounce back to the figure they had before. There have been female actors that have done incredible body transformations and been awarded for it, but I just wanted to mention that there seems to be somewhat of an imbalance in this space in the acting industry. Not that it's the healthiest thing to be doing, and that segues nicely to the next section, which is about health implications. As we've seen with the example from Christian Bale's career, it almost seems so simple and easy the way he just gains and loses weight that quickly, but it shouldn't be regarded as simple or ordinary in the slightest. Gaining and losing extreme amounts of weight this way is a form of yo-yo dieting or weight cycling. I did a video not too long ago about a reality TV show called Fit to Fat to Fit, where personal trainers will gain a significant amount of weight and then try to lose it together with the participants on the show. Even them doing that once was considered to be extremely unhealthy and dangerous, and that was the main criticism that that show received. But if we look at Hollywood, Christian Bale's been doing that for 20 years straight. There is still not a lot of research around yo-yo dieting or weight cycling and the impact that it has on long-term health. But these practices have been implicated in an elevated risk for eating disorders, other psychological disorders, and multiple comorbidities such as obesity, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, cancer, bone fractures, and increased overall mortality. There are currently a couple of hypotheses that are better accepted as possible outcomes of yo-yo dieting. One of them is the repeated overshoot. It's known that fluctuations in weight can lead to a fluctuation in other factors such as blood pressure, heart rate, sympathetic activity, glucose, insulin, triglycerides, and cholesterol, to name a few. And when we gain weight, those factors can obviously increase above normal levels. Not only that happens when we gain weight, but if we repeatedly gain and lose and gain and lose and gain weight back again, we repeatedly overshoot those factors above normal levels. And the thought currently is that whenever we lose the weight, those factors don't necessarily reduce in line with the reduction of weight. So as a consequence, this repeated stress puts an extra load on the heart and can cause vascular injury. The second hypothesis is one that I've heard more people talk about in the dieting and weight loss space. And so the thought goes that when we lose weight, we tend to lose muscle. Muscle is metabolically active, so it burns more calories than fat, for example. When we lose weight and we lose muscle, we are not therefore burning as many calories as we were before because we lost that muscle that burns calories. So if we lose weight and then we are burning less calories, when we then regain weight, what has been observed is that we don't tend to regain the muscle with the same speed that we lost it. So we may gain more fat than muscle instead when we gain the weight back. And if we end up regaining the same amount of weight, but instead of having the level of muscle we had before, we now have more fat than muscle, we are not burning as many calories as we were in the original state. So if we are now eating the same number of calories we were eating originally, and we are burning less calories, we will put on more weight than we had originally. So then obviously that comes associated with all the risks that we know exist with having a high percentage of body fat in the body, notwithstanding the fact that body fat is not just a static component of our body mass. Body fat is an active organ, part of the endocrine system, and it's responsible for the secretion of hormones such as leptin, the satiety hormone. So if we gain and lose weight repeatedly, we may cause imbalances in the hormone production in our body, in our appetite regulation, and this can lead to obesity down the run, and obviously all the risks that are associated with obesity. Now, obviously, I would expect the studies that focus on yo-yo dieting or weight cycling, which is not a lot to be honest currently, I would expect them to take into account the average person who may, gain and lose maybe somewhere between 5 and 20 pounds, around 2 and 10 kilos. But if we look at method actors, they are losing and gaining substantial amounts of weight, which are far more extreme than the few pounds that the average person is constantly trying to gain and lose after Christmas every year. If we bring up this curve that I've shared a few times on the channel before, this is derived from the largest study ever done linking BMI and all-cause mortality in over 4 continents and 10 million individuals. And it shows that for all continents, at some point below a BMI of about 20 and above a BMI of around 25 or 27, the risks for all-cause mortality begin to increase, and they continue to increase the further away we move from these points. The average person gaining and losing a few pounds every year will only fluctuate a couple of points within this range. But in most cases where extreme body transformations are achieved in Hollywood, these individuals are ranging from both extremes of this curve repeatedly. And although Christian Bale reports that he hasn't experienced any major negative side effects from his body transformations, we do have examples from other Hollywood actors who show how dangerous this can be. In 1996, Matt Damon lost 51 pounds or 23 kilos in just 3 months for the film Courage Under Fire, and as a result, reportedly, he had to take medication for 1.5 years after filming due to this. And in 2007, Jared Leto gained 65 pounds or 29.5 kilos for the film Chapter 27, and as a result, he was bound to a wheelchair, got gout, and had to take medication to lower his cholesterol. Of course, in this video, I'm only focusing on risks associated with natural weight loss and gain, and not focusing on health risks associated with hacks or tricks to gain or lose weight artificially, nor focusing on muscle building with the help of steroids or performance-enhancing drugs, which I know allegedly are becoming more and more common in some Hollywood circles. So, is there another way? Can actors still achieve moving performances without risking their health? The answer is potentially yes. While researching Christian Bale, I found an interview where he talks about gaining weight for the film Vice and calling Gary Oldman for advice.
And I knew he had played Winston Churchill. And he said, no, I didn't gain any weight. And I went, no, you're not understanding. And by that time, I was already like 25 pounds heavier and still going, still chomping like a sumo wrestler. And he said, no, Christian, I didn't gain a pound. So I went, oh, man. But it does appear as though prosthetics have come such a long way that it can be achieved without that yet. But I didn't know that.
For the most of us, when we think about prosthetics and film makeup, we probably have flashbacks from shows such as Face Off, where the result is usually outlandish characters or sci-fi characters that look nothing like humans. But in reality, this industry has come a long way in terms of makeup and prosthetics and the subtle and realistic results they can achieve. I'm going to bring up Gary Oldman again, as The Darkest Hour is a great example of what can be achieved with makeup and prosthetics and the great effort that goes into it. But this is still very controversial, of course. There have been actors that have been shamed or received backlash for using fat suits and prosthetics, perhaps strengthening the idea that if the actor is not willing to transform their body for a role, maybe they are not dedicated enough. Also, part of the criticism to actors using fat suits comes from people believing that this could be seen as offensive to people in larger bodies, or that by resorting to prosthetics and fat suits, Hollywood is discriminating against already fat actors who could play these parts. We're going to bring this up again in a minute. Then we have CGI and visual effects. It would be very naive in the age of Instagram and TikTok to assume that digital effects in the film industry are only used for computer-generated characters. Some examples where this technology has been used, sometimes along with body doubles, to alter the appearance of actors in films include Josh Hutcherson in The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1, Chris Evans in Captain America: The First Avenger, and Brad Pitt as Benjamin Button, to name a few. It is also no secret that in Hollywood there are also people who are hired to Photoshop people in film, and this has happened for years and years. So obviously there's always the possibility that we can take all of this technology that exists a little too far. And there's also no consensus yet on what is acceptable to the audience and what is not. As we saw, makeup, prosthetics, CGI, and visual effects have all the ability to help an actor change their appearance without risking their health. But what about when we go ahead and transform the actor into a completely different person? I remember when the House of Gucci advertisement came out, Twitter went wild. That platform caught fire, as it does every day, but that day it was towards Jared Leto's character. Now, I know Twitter doesn't like Jared very much. I will try to be neutral because when I was 13, I was a big 30 Seconds to Mars fan, but I actually haven't seen many movies with Jared Leto in it, except for Suicide Squad, where I actually fell asleep on the cinema. It was the midnight session, okay? I think the debate went on around the question, did we really need to have Jared play that specific role? If we think about sort of sci-fi movies or, any movie where the characters are not necessarily human resembling. No one has an issue with a human playing that character because, well, the character doesn't exist in the real world. In this particular case, we do have one human playing another human, but they both look completely different. In the House of Gucci, I think the debate was around that there are more people who are more similar in appearance to that real person than Jared Leto. In defense of that argument, I can see why people go towards that, because in the same film, we have Lady Gaga and Adam Driver, who play people who existed, but they still look like themselves and they still look somewhere similar to the people that they are playing. Now, on the other side of the argument, I also understand if you told me that the director felt like Jared was the best person for the role. Why is his appearance the blocker to that? But I do understand if we stretch it a little further to say that if we start using makeup and prosthetics to change any actor into whatever appearance we want them to have, then basically it doesn't really matter who you cast because we just need a body to carry the prosthetics. However, in relying on prosthetics and fat suits to modify the physical appearance of already established actors, we may be taking away opportunities from good, lesser known actors who may fit the physical criteria already. Where do we draw the line on what is acceptable as far as changing an actor's appearance and what is not? If we start talking about body transformations in the Marvel universe, for example, I think these are already so hotly debated, even when naturally achieved, that I begin to wonder where may we be headed if on top of that we start adding digitally morphing actors' bodies in post-production. If we start doing that, does that mean that Hollywood can potentially become a version of Instagram filters on film, and what impact does it have on younger audiences to come? So in conclusion, I don't really have any answers for this. I just thought I would discuss this topic on a high level because I find it interesting. I do like to see the comment section filled with debate from everyone just sharing their ideas and being respectful, of course. So I will close this video by opening up a couple of questions. Do you think that body transformations should be seen in a way as actors going above and beyond their role? And should we view these transformations as proof of their professionalism and dedication? Second, do you think that makeup, prosthetics, CGI, and visual effects are able to achieve a similar result on screen as when actors change their appearances naturally? Or do you think that we should go back to casting actors that already naturally fit the physical criteria for the roles? Let me know your thoughts. I'm really curious to see everyone's opinion down in the comments section. I'll see you down there and I'll see you on the next one. Bye!